If you ask a horse nicely in a way that he understands, he'll give you the shirt off his back. He'll do anything for you if he understands what you're asking. And to me, that's the mystery. That's the mystery. How a prey animal will allow a human being on their back and work as a partnership. That's unbelievable.
First time to 20 rides, there's still that feeling of the awe of the mountains. And to have a partnership with an animal like that can take you up on ridges that you probably wouldn't even be able to walk up yourself, that's exhilarating. My brother and I, when we were about 10, found a rancher who would rent us a horse, I think for a quarter a day. And so we would work to make money. We would ride bikes for probably 5 miles. Once we got the horses, we were on our own. And it was just the two of us and two horses, and we were gone for the day. And then it was the ride back home, and when you got there, you were exhausted, but we were happy. My name's Gary Sandbeck. I'm the president of the Trail Riders of the Canadian Rockies. It's a trail riding club that's been active in the Canadian Rockies since 1923. And the idea was to introduce people into the beauty of the Canadian Rockies, specifically in the Banff area at that time. The way we do it, we ride into the backcountry, do some camps, and then do trail rides from there. So we're able to get further back into the country. Like with horses in those days, that was the most, and probably even to this day, it's one of the best ways of getting people into the high country, and that's what it is. It's riding high. A horse can get you up on two ridges and areas where you get 360 views. To hit 100, that's amazing. Particularly, this club has been through the years tough times, and going back to the 40s, and there's been, it hasn't been easy, and people have always stepped up and kept the club going. So it's special. I think the legacy for the trail riders has been the probably thousands of people who've had the opportunity to ride in the mountains on horses and see the beauty that way.
Well, I do have a love of taking pictures of nature. Nature is just so beautiful, and especially on trail ride and in the mountains. The nature that you see, the vistas that you see, and the small details that you see are all worth capturing on film. It's just incredibly amazing what you see in nature. Getting up onto the ridges to see the beauty in front of you and all around you, it can be challenging getting there, but once you're there, it's worth it. There's no end to the vistas because trail ride gets up high on ridges and around lakes, and so there's no end to the beauty that you see from high up in the mountains. And you realize also that you've made some really good friends there on trail ride, and a lot of the friendships that you make on trail ride, they continue on even after, long after.
You know, when you're out camping with your family, you're sitting around a fire like this, there's just something about the campfire that's so mesmerizing, just hypnotizing. You just stare and you just kind of go off in your mind and think about some nice things, you know. So wrote this song. It's called Warden TV. The horses are brushed, watered and fed, with hobbles and bells to the pasture they're led. Now roll up a spoke and sit down with me. Together we'll watch Warden TV. It's in the fire. You know, the people that come to these rides, you know, have personalities and have stories to tell, and that's what we do at the end of the day. And I think it's just a, you know, a love for people, a love for the outdoors, and a love for the horses and the Western lifestyle. Brings us all together, and to go with Trail Riders, a 100-year-old organization, man, that really counts for something. That tells them, if we book a ride with Trail Riders, been around for 100 years, we're gonna have a great time, and that's what happens every ride. You better put another log on the Warden TV. You better put another log on the Warden TV. You know, the relationship between a horse and a rider is mysterious to me. That horses are prey animals. You know, they're still in the food chain. And a horse only sleeps for 3 hours a day and just about 10-minute naps. And that's because there are predators out there in this country who have been known to take down horses. And even with all of that that's built into them, as being a prey animal, they still allow us to get on their backs and ride in this country. And here at Trail Riders, that happens because these horses are so sound and trained so well, and that magic happens between rider and horse out here on these trails. And I still can't process it, how that works, you know. Very grateful, unbelievably grateful that horse allows me that privilege, and at the end of the day, when you climb off your horse, that's something you should, in my mind, you should think about. That horse has allowed me to be his partner for the whole day, when at times everything that he is bred for goes against that. You may want to be your horse's best friend, but he doesn't want to be your best friend. He'd rather be with his buddies, hanging out with his horse friends, eating, grazing, frolicking out here in these meadows, but he allows you to climb on his back and enjoy this beautiful province. And to me, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, one of the things I've always liked about the Western culture is the style, and I also grew up watching the old Clint Eastwood movies and John Wayne and all that. It just kind of appealed to me, but I come from a small cattle family in BC. We have a small farm in Clearwater, and my dad and both my grandpa hate horses, so I'm kind of the black sheep of the family with that one there. But yeah, one of the things I like about the horses is that when you're on the trail, they're pretty low maintenance. It's kind of like cruising in like a Cadillac Coupe de Ville or something, depending on your horse. If you have a big long horse, then you're just riding there. And your horse does the work for you. All you got to do is just watch out for low-hanging branches so you can take in the scenery. Because when I first started off, I knew nothing about horses, because the first pack trip I did was kind of trial by fire. I'd never ridden a horse before in my life, and Jonas just kind of picked me up and threw me on one and said, "There you go, have fun."
I guess I became interested in the horses just with growing up on a cattle ranch and doing work in that kind of situation, I guess. Like, yeah, you know, gathering cows and doing ranch work like that. This has been my work for now 10 plus years, and I just think that for me, like, my skill sets with the horses and whatnot has set me up pretty good to be in this industry, because it's like not easy to find people who know about horses, about the mountains, about packing especially is a really just a dying art, you know. Like, not very many, especially young people, do realize like how much goes into this, I guess.
At the top? Yeah, fourth line up. Now I'm sitting at the lids.
There's no reason why anyone who has a passion to even try to do something like this shouldn't give it a chance, because yeah, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of hard work and you do got to have a certain skill set, but the only way to get that is to come out and try. And like, you know, some people might think, oh, that's like, you got to be really tough and you got to be a guy essentially, but for the most part that's not true at all. Like, anyone who wants to can definitely excel in this kind of an industry, I guess. You've seen the places we've seen on this trip, like just an incredible places that most people in the world do not get to experience, never mind even with the horses. And then you add in the horse aspect and it just bumps it up a million levels, you know. There's just no real connection to nature and the animals that are out here quite like experiencing it on a horse, where they're in an environment that they're comfortable in and they can take you all these different places and just do some pretty incredible things.
At the ranch, we keep them in the pastures here, and then we give them a round bale in the morning and then a round bale at night. And then usually, not over the winter time, but in the springtime, we'll get all the horses into the barn over there. With the horses we can trust, because we have some horses that are still kind of new to the pack trip. So they might try and go home when we kick them out into the field. So those are the ones we leave in the camp. And then we put bells around their necks, so if they do kind of go out of sight, we can still hear them.
They get brushed twice a day. They get their feet looked at every morning. And taking care of them is just a constant throughout the day. Like, you're always monitoring, making sure that they are comfortable, fixing stuff when it's necessary. Like, saddle pads will slip, you just get off and you fix them, which is obviously not a big deal, but it's something that doesn't always get addressed right away. And that is when simple stuff like that can become bigger problems if it's left unchecked and unattended to. And honestly, like, these horses are our lives out here, and you know, if we don't have them, we don't have these trips, we don't have a business. So if we're not looking after them like we have to, then this just doesn't work. Like, nothing will happen. So it's number one priority. Horses, for the wranglers anyway, the horses come before. After the people are safe, the horses are number one, you know? So everything that we do is for the horses' comfort and safety.
All the equipment we use, there's a reason why we have saddle blankets. It's not just the saddle. The blanket adds padding, so when you climb up onto it, and it's also, the saddles are designed to fit onto their back, so it doesn't hurt them in any way.
I love being in the backcountry with horses just because they are just probably the easiest, most dependable way to get around. And it's just such a tried and tested method to exploring and just showing other people the different places that you can go and all the stuff that they can do, you know.
There's a common misconception is that people think that, you know, it's cruel to ride horses, but I mean, if they didn't want us on their backs, then we wouldn't be on the horse's back. But a lot of it is just, we treat the horses with respect, they treat us with respect.
Honestly, my relationship with a horse, I'd say, is just like having a little brother, being able to rely on someone to actually either protect you or just encourage you to do certain things. And that's what a horse does for me. So many things that are special about being with a horse. For one, it's just the general experience. Like, as I said, I've been riding for 13 years, and anytime I go on a trip in the mountains with a horse, it's like the very first time all over again. You experience all those feelings, emotions, spiritually as well. All right, my name is Guy Wesley Ryder. I'm just your average trail rider. I've been riding for about 13 years now. So it's basically been in my family since since horses were introduced to North America. You know, First Nations have always been involved with that type of stuff. And honestly, as soon as I became conscious, a horse was in my front yard. So I've always known horses since I was able to walk. Being First Nations, spiritual connection with an animal, especially a horse, is a big thing for us. In terms of going out in the mountains, you just feel that with the horse. It's not something that you can replace. And it's something I look forward to every single time I'm in the mountains with my horse, whether it be with my family or alone. Yeah, we treat our horses with a lot of respect. It's mutual. And we just honestly treat them as if they're your own blood. That's the type of respect I have with my horses. That connection that you feel with a horse when you're in the mountains it's so unexplainable. The type of trust and the feelings that just come through the second you're on that mountaintop or you're in the fields crossing a river, you just can't replace that with a horse, and it's something that I want everyone to experience. To put it in a simple wording is horses don't judge. They don't think of you any different if you say a certain thing. And it's just, when I'm on a horse, especially in the mountains, that spiritual connection I feel is honestly unexplainable. Honestly, my anxiety, my doubts, and just certain emotions that I've dealt with in life, this guy's been there for all of that, and he's helped me through so much. And I believe that everyone should have a chance to experience that with a horse, because they can help you with mental health, and they can help you with confidence and life skills. This guy taught me everything I know. He's taught me how to run, how to climb mountains, how to cross rivers, how to get bucked off. He's taught me just about everything, and to this day I hope he teaches my younger siblings the same things that he taught me. He honestly made me the man I am today when it comes to horses. Horses play a huge part for the Stoney Nakoda. And it's not so much as the old ways in terms of migrating and hauling teepees, but it's more or less the mental part, because as First Nations we go through a lot. We've been through a lot, and I think horses play a huge part in our I guess, healing process, especially when it comes to my grandparents, because my grandpa's 70 and he still rides a horse as if he was 20.
So there's clear evidence in the Rocky Mountains that the Indigenous peoples have been here for more than 10,000 years. And so they are the original guides for the Rocky Mountains. They were intimate with the land. They understand what it was to go through the backcountry. They had a very intimate relationship with horses that we enjoyed. They were very good at guiding people through the trails. In fact, they were the guide for our first guide, Tom Wilson. Back in 1882, Tom Wilson was starting to guide through places like Banff National Park, Lake Louise, Jasper. And in 1923, when Trail Riders of the Canadian Rockies was first established, Tom Wilson was our first guide. And so we've had this relationship with the Stoney Nakoda and guiding in the backcountry now for nearly 100 years. Then in 1924, we hosted a grand powwow with more than 200 people. And Chief Walking Buffalo of the Stoney Nakoda bestowed the honor of chief, honorary chief, to John Murray Gibbon. His name was Man of Many Sides. And he was given that honor because he had the ability to see different sides of an issue or negotiation or an argument. During the grand powwow, Chief Walking Buffalo brought two of his best painters, and they painted 20 teepees as part of the Sundance Lodge. And so many photographers, writers, painters, and artists captured much of that in 1924. And they were mesmerized at the quality and how fast these painters could paint these 20 teepees. It was truly extraordinary.
The Stoney Nakoda have been here for over thousands of years, and we were like the first trail guides, the first people to discover all these hot springs, these rivers, waterfalls, you name it. And I personally believe that we're the reason why Canada is what it is today. If it weren't for us, the settlers wouldn't have found these big hot spots, especially Banff, you know, all these big national parks.
In 1885, Canada opened its first national park, Banff. And it was an opportunity for people from all over the world to come to Banff to be able to enjoy the splendor of the Rocky Mountains. Soon after that, the Canadian Pacific Railway opened up the transcontinental. And so passengers were coming in from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they were stopping in Banff, Lake Louise, and Jasper. And then soon after that, the Banff Springs Hotel opened. And so there was a place for people to stay, there was a way for people to get to Banff, but what they were missing is how do they get into the backcountry? And so Trail Riders of the Canadian Rockies was started in 1923 in order to provide a way for people to get into the backcountry and to enjoy all of Banff National Park. We've been enjoying the Rocky Mountains in the backcountry for nearly 100 years. So it's our time to give back. It's our time to share the splendor of the backcountry, but in a different way. From a learning and an education perspective, bringing our youth into the backcountry again. It's important for young people to kind of connect with nature and, you know, get off their couch, get away from their Xbox or their PlayStation, and to be able to experience the life and world around them in a more natural way.
As a young guy myself, I may not look it, but I'm 17, I'm a fairly big fellow, but one of the reasons why I like going into the backcountry is just for the experience and the scenery you get, and you come out with stories every time. Yeah, you won't be able to find scenery like this sitting inside on your phone, but I normally leave school about 2 weeks early just to come up here because it's a great lifestyle out here.
there's a lot of things that horses can teach you that you can't learn just by staring at a phone or dealing with day-to-day life. I think it's a great experience to be on a horse in the backcountry because it teaches you a lot in terms of, sure, you learn a lot about the horse, but you also learn about yourself, because you got to build confidence to be on an animal that's over 1,000 pounds. So of course you're gonna have anxiety and certain things to be nervous about, but at the same time, these animals are amazing, and they just teach you so much about yourself. If it weren't for a horse, I don't know the type of man I'd be today. And I'm only 20, so I still have so much to learn.
Our hope is, our legacy for the next 100 years is an education series for youth. We believe that we can bring a lot of value to young people by getting them out on a horse into the backcountry to study things like climate change or environmental protection, wildlife conservation, and Indigenous heritage. So these 4 streams of education are something that we want to be able to bring to young people, and we think it's very valuable for them to learn. You know, you can be on a horse, and instead of looking down at your feet like you would as a hiker or a cyclist, you can sit on your horse, let your horse take you through the Rocky Mountains, through the trails, and you'll be able to kind of see the evidence of what's happening around you. We're losing our glaciers 10 meters every year. Forest fires are happening with more severity and more frequency. And so there's a lot of lessons that young people can learn while they're in the backcountry on a horse. And we're excited to bring that to youth.
Our organization, we're also called the Stewards of Nature. And that's something that we are very, very proud of. And some of the practices that we do is we work with our partners. We work with Parks Canada. We work with the Alberta provincial government. We work with Stoney Nakoda First Nations to the east of us to ensure that they are part of our trip planning, and they are part of our trail cutting and maintaining these camps in a pristine condition in the national park, which is absolutely paramount. You know, we're a no trace camping organization. We pack out all of our garbage. We leave the areas in better condition than when we arrived to, and that's a real privilege to be able to work with parks and other organizations to ensure that trail riding and horse use in the backcountry remains an approved activity in their management plans.
The wilderness has to be conserved and give us the ability to be able to enjoy it, to be able to be one with it, if that's all right, like to be able to maintain it so that we can keep riding into the mountains.
And if she wants to eat while everyone's waiting, that's fine.
Okay. I imagine she will.
One of the great benefits of traveling through the backcountry on a horse is that it reduces the impact with wildlife. When you're sitting on a horse, walking through a trail, it's way less obtrusive than if you're hiking, cycling, no motorized vehicles, of course. But it is from an environmental perspective, the best way to travel through the backcountry. So a great example of wildlife conservation is the bison herd that's been reintroduced into Banff National Park. The only way you can get to monitor the bison herd is on horseback. And the bison are instrumental with the Indigenous people of the area. The Stoney Nakoda, the Blackfoot, they all used to rely heavily on the bison. The bison herd is thriving. It went from 16 to 60 in the last few years. And the bison are very instrumental to the local Indigenous people here. And so when you combine traditional knowledge and cultural monitoring with traditional Western science, then you can get a real 360-degree view of the bison herd. Indigenous heritage is an area of concern for many Indigenous peoples. They're concerned that their young people are losing their culture, their language, their connection to Mother Earth. So we want to help them by bringing elders out on horses into the backcountry with their youth to be able to study and to rekindle that relationship with nature.
I think what motivates me to expose my horses to the public, especially in the Calgary Stampede, is just the genuine reaction you get when you see a foreign person see a First Nations person on a horse in full regalia, because it's insane how little that is exposed in today's world. It's the smiles and just the genuine reactions I get when I'm on a horse and I explain to them how much they mean to us First Nations, because every year in the Calgary Stampede I help as a wrangler in the daily parade, so I meet well over 500 people during the whole event, and it's always a different reaction when they see a First Nations person in full regalia on top of a horse with the horse covered in regalia as well, because you can't replace that anywhere. It just motivates me to get our culture out there and show that we're not that we're still here as First Nations people, and that we're still practicing our cultures just as much as we would back 1,000 years ago.
You know, our hope is that Trail Riders of the Canadian Rockies can deliver an experience in the backcountry on a horse that they wouldn't otherwise get. And so we're excited about the next 100 years because we believe that it's an opportunity for young people to reconnect with nature, to have a better understanding of the issues, the global issues around them when it comes to climate change or wildlife conservation or protecting our environment. We know that young people are concerned about those issues, and we share their concern, and we want to be able to work with young people in the backcountry and to educate them on these issues.
I think it's important for the youth to learn about the wildlife, because with the learning becomes the knowledge, the understanding, and then that'll lead to the proper decisions. That we have to make decisions about how we live with the country, with the wildlife. You have to understand your environment. I mean, we live here, right? You have to at least do the research and try to understand. I mean, you might come to a different conclusion than some other people, but it behooves you to at least pay attention and to care about it, because this is our country. You know, the trail riders' mandate again is to ride in the Rocky Mountains. So that's what we want to leave with the grandchildren, and the children is the awareness that this is here, the awareness of how much beauty there is, the awareness of how much respect there has to be about that, and the awareness that it takes effort, and you need to be put that effort in, and whether or not it's political, volunteer, you just need to spend the time to understand it and then put the effort into it and help to preserve it.